afternoon, everybody. You're very welcome to our session this afternoon on the localization of educational media resources, how to adapt educational resources to local contexts. My name is Sally Reynolds from the Media Learning Association, and it's my pleasure to moderate the session this afternoon. So just a couple of things before we get started. First of all, this is the agenda that we're going to cover this afternoon. We'll do a brief introduction, followed then by presentations from Tim from VRT, Igor and Stela from the University of Zagreb in Croatia, and Annique from Schooltv in the Netherlands. And they're all connected with a project called EDUmake, which Tim will tell you all about. And then we're delighted to also have Airola joining us from KAVI in Finland to talk about another project directly related to the topic of localization, and both in terms of language and also cultural localization. So in between each of these talks, we'll have a chance for discussion and for questions and answers, of course. All of our presenters are kindly ready and willing to engage, so I hope that'll work for you as well. A couple of practical things. First of all, this session, as you can see, is being recorded, and we'll make the recording available afterwards as well. We'll also create a short recap and share the presentations that have been given by our presenters this afternoon. Please use the chat, first of all, to say hello, and also if you have questions, or if there's particular links you want to make or resources you want to share, please feel free to use the chat. Something we often ask people to do, first of all, is switch your camera on if you can, and your mic off, because it's nice to see everybody, and it's also nice for our presenters, rather than talking to a blank screen. It's always nicer to see people. Also, if you'd like to adjust your name, like Dovie and I have, we've adjusted our name so it says Media Learning Association. If you can adjust your name to add the name of your organization and also your country, that's also nice for us to know. And you do that by just pressing on your name in the list of participants. There's 3 little dots. If you click on that, you get the option to rename yourself. So it's always nice in Zoom to know where people are joining us from. I think that's all the practical things that we had for you. It's great to see we've 32 participants this afternoon, probably several more still to come. We thought it'd be nice to start with a poll this afternoon. So we'd just like to ask you a couple of questions. So here you are. The first one is, first of all, have you ever adapted educational resources to a local context? So this is a yes or not yet question. And the second question is, what do you think is the biggest challenge when localizing educational resources? And there's a couple of options there as well for you. So if you could just take a moment to answer our poll. It was very helpful for our participants, but also for our speakers this afternoon to have an idea of how experienced people are in this topic. As you know, particularly around topics like media literacy, we often talk about sharing resources from one country or one region to another. And this question of how easy it is to localize them, to adapt them to local settings is one that comes up a lot. So that's at the heart of our session this afternoon, and that's why we're asking questions of you. Great, so we have lots of people who have already localized. That's great to know. So we're looking forward to hearing your experience of adjusting and localizing. And then here we are, the different challenges. So you can see clearly balancing authenticity and relevance is important. Dov, you give me a sign when you think that we have most people have had a chance to respond.
Let's just give 1 more minute, maybe.
Okay. And we have a couple of people still joining us. Welcome, those of you who just joined us. And then there's the other, the inevitable other. Please share in the chat. Yeah, so balancing. Finding funding is an issue, of course, always. Good translations and good localizations costs. Okay, so can I share the results now, Dovie?
Yeah, we're sharing the results now.
Okay. Okay, everybody. So what we'll do is we will share these results as well later on to you so that you can see for yourself what it was at the beginning. It's always interesting to do these polls again at the end, so we can always check at the end and see if you still think the same challenges are there. Okay, without further ado, then I am delighted to introduce Tim from VRT, who's going to lead us through, give us an introduction to the EDUmake project and where it fits into the story of localization. Tim.
Okay, yeah, thank you for the introduction. I will share my screen Here we go. Yeah, happy to be here. I will give you all a quick introduction to EDUmake. Quickly, yeah. With EDUmake, we had a mission. It all started from the VRT. I'm working for the VRT, the Flemish public broadcaster, and I work for the innovation department. But I mainly work for projects that concerns education. And at VRT, we have developed a new format that's called EDUbox. And we had the idea, can it be interesting for other countries, for other public broadcasters or other organizations that want to do something for youngsters? So yeah, our ambition for the project EDUmake is to internationalize the concept of EDUbox and also create an easy to use format for translating and contextualization these EDUbox packages. So at the end, we wanted to give a toolkit to other organizations so they could build the right EDUbox format with the right principles, guidelines, but also provide some tools so that they can easily create the EDUbox and so on. And also so that's what was an important part of EDUmake, and also to test this toolkit and test the contextualization and everything that has to be on board for that. We also are creating at the moment right now a joint EDUbox about European policy. So those are the three objectives in the project: translate and contextualize existing EDUboxes, the people from MTR and also from the University of Zagreb, they will give you a perfect explanation of how they have done it, the choices that they had to make. So they will give you an in-depth presentation about that. So that's the first one, translate and contextualize the existing EDUboxes. The second one, like I've told you, it's about EDUbox do-it-yourself toolkits. And then together we have created a common EDUbox about the European elections. Here I give you a quick sneak preview about two contextualizations. For me, as VRT, where the EDUbox has originated, it was interesting to see the different approach from the two different partners, but it was very learnful actually. It was very also fun to see the different approach and to see what they came up with. So it was interesting for us as VRT. But like I said, they will give you a quick introduction to those two contextualizations. But first of all, what is an EDUbox? So I also wanted to give you a quick introduction in what is the format. An EDUbox, it is an educational package. It consists of different kind of assets. It consists of slides with useful information, with videos that we specifically create about a topic, but also a lot of interactive games and applications. And we try to create the right mix of content, and also that those content is also that it has a kind of structure. There is a storytelling structure to be seen. And it's all about topics like, for example, fake news, artificial intelligence, sexting. So those actual contemporary topics that we are trying to bring to the youngsters in a new and fun way. It's a free learning tool for us at VRT. We also try to work towards specific educational attainment levels, learning goals, and several key competences. And it's a ready-made package. Teachers don't need a lot of preparation. No, it's an easy-to-use box that they can use in the classrooms without further preparation. And for us, why we have done that actually is we were trying to find out the right mix between the use of technology, didactics, and storytelling. Because we as a VRT, we are good at storytelling. That's our main business. We make programs for television and radio, and now we wanted to find out what could be a program for students in classrooms. And that's why EDUbox came out of this of these brainstorms actually. Let's dive into a topic in a fun and engaging way where we combine technology, detectives, and storytelling. And here are some examples. In the middle, you see a simulation that we have created. We also create specific videos with faces, with experts from VRT. It's also a way to bring those faces to the young audiences, which is always a difficult task to do. And there is also some QR codes that goes to a video or goes to an application. So it's it's a mix, it's a combination of different learning activities. Okay, but we have created that format. Now it's also we are trying to find ways to make that or make the creation more efficient and more streamlined. So in EDUmake, we are building some EDUbox games and also building a backend content management system to easily replicate those games without some technical assistance. We will also create some guidelines and some templates, and also in the bottom right you can see a little bit what does it consist of the EDUbox? What are the guidelines, the principles? What are the ingredients of a good EDUbox? So we have done the contextualizations. We are trying to build a do-it-yourself toolkit, but in the end, it will all needs to come together in a new EDUbox about politics and about European policy. And it will consist of 4 parts. In the first part, in the connect part, we will connect with the live world of youngsters, and there we will give that as a first exercise. They need to come up with a party, and we will try to connect organizing a party with politics. I think it's a fun way to introduce the concept of politics and elections. Then in the second part, we will give some new concepts and learn them about political language, political ideologies and the political system. And then in part 3, it's all about learning by doing, do it by yourself, and you have to form a government and make decisions and work together. So it's, do it for yourself. You can see that it's often quite complex. And then we end with a conclusion. Here are some examples of some slides that we will include in the EDUbox. This is a mock-up. It will be look different, but it's a mock-up of the co-op game where they have to work together and act to some challenges. Next to those, to the main EDUbox about politics, we also create some extras, some mini EDUboxes. One specifically about ideologies and finding out different standpoints, and also one about political language, political communication, and propaganda. And for example, we will create a tool where they can upload their IDs and images. It's all about debating, debate about different standpoints and viewpoints, and we will moderate that with a digital tool. For the EDUbox political language, we have created a poster app, so they have to create their own campaign and think about some propaganda techniques. Will I use them, yes or no? It's also conversation starters to have this discussion in the classroom. So that's a very quick introduction of EDUmake, where we, like I said, we will contextualize it, we will build a do-it-yourself toolkit, and we will build a new EDUbox about the elections.
Thank you, Tim. That is all very clear. Has anybody got any immediate questions they'd like to put to Tim? You can also switch on, just raise your hand or switch on your mic. If there's anything at the moment. Okay, I don't see anybody for the moment. What we want to do now, oh, sorry, Bella.
Yes, hi, I'm a former
Bit hard to hear you, Bella.
Can you hear me?
That's better, yeah. Hold the mic up to your mouth. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Just my computer is a little bit
No problem.
low. All right, Tim, I have a question to you. It's about politics, I think, yes. And what do you think, probably you have some plans or project. What do you think about loneliness of kids, young audience in networks, probably about ethics? If you are talking about politics, right, we have to think about it also.
I didn't understand.
Okay, the question is about loneliness. Tim, have you considered this as part of the work that you're doing within EDUbox and EDUmake?
About loneliness. I don't. Yeah,
No.
I don't know what you actually mean with that, because
I mean that we are all in social networks. We are all lonely.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. We are like in some boxes. We are talking. We are liking. We are commenting. Even when we are commenting. Sorry.
Bella, I'm going to hold you just there if you don't mind,
Mhm.
because I think I can also make some recommendations for a couple of projects that we know about, particularly on the subject.
Sorry.
So no problem at all. Thinking of Fit to Belong, for example, which is specifically a European project tackling issues like that. But I'd like to try and keep it, if we can, onto the topic of localization today, if we can. So I'll follow up with you with some separate links, Bella. And maybe if other people have got some comments or feedback on that topic, you can give them in the chat as well. That'd be great. Thank you very much. I'm going to move on then, if that's okay, because of course what Tim has presented has been a set of resources, but then the challenge was to localize them and to actually make them available in a local context. So we have two presentations specifically on that. And the first one is going to be given by Igor. So I'll ask you, Igor, to share your screen if you wouldn't mind. Thank you. And tell us how you got on in contextualizing EDUmake or EDUboxes in Croatia.
Hi everyone, thank you Sally for the introduction. I hope that this presentation will motivate you for contextualization if you are thinking about to do it for the first time, because our experience is great and I will give some arguments and the reasons why you should think about it, and I definitely think that then we will have a discussion based upon the things that you will see in the next 20 minutes. I'm from the University of Zagreb, Faculty of Political Science, Study of Journalism and Media Production, and together with my colleague Tatena, Predrag, Petra, Stela, Sasha and Dejan, we have produced the first contextualization of EDUbox culture. And this was done also by the support from our television student, which is the first and the biggest television student television in Croatia. Why is this important? Because this is maybe one of the most important dissemination channels for us. And the second thing is that we will definitely produce content even after the official end of the project by the students for the students on culture. Now, the second thing I would like to emphasize is when we were choosing which topic shall we take as the first one, it was hard to decide for culture because it is in a way challenging topic. At the moment, we were thinking about the reactions from the students in high schools in Croatia and their faces when you first mentioned culture and their first opinion of culture, first association, and you will see some answers. I'm sure that they will be interesting for you. So for that reason, we have decided to choose culture topic as the first challenge, and we are definitely happy that we have done so because we had so many great reactions in the schools while piloting the same product. Now, several topics and our experience on contextualization. As you probably know, I saw that 60% of you had already the experience of contextualizing. I'm 100% sure that you had some problems with translation and language barrier. And even within our project EDUmake, sometimes we think that it is not so complicated to be done. But when you face with some small decisions without having a broader discussion on several topics, you see that there are so many small challenges while trying to even do this first step to translate and to keep it simple, short, understandable, and that public in Croatia can relate to this topic and the content. So this was really a challenge because as we were doing first level, it was translated from Dutch to English and then from English to Croatian language. And we had to be very careful while doing so because each one of these levels could, in a way, lead to a totally different direction without being careful and doing it on a proper way. Second thing was also about the syntax, narrative, and discourse. Because when you are contextualizing, you have to have your audience in front of you all the time and think how these pupils and how these high school students will react when they will be exposed to a certain content. So for that reason, we have paid special attention to syntax and narrative. Only then comes the editing, proofreading, and finally layout. while we have to say that the layouting of PDF is easy in comparison to what had to be done in production and post-production while producing new material. On the right side, you can see three main videos that were produced by VRT, and we have contextualized it into Croatian. It was not so complicated, although, as I said, we had to pay special attention to the translations and to the syntax and narrative. And the last one is actually animation video, which is very good, and we had very good response from the students, especially in this. Now, the second thing is also in relation to what I just said. I'm showing two same examples. Now, on the left side, you see the translation on English of the page 21, where we have a chapter, Everyone is Different, with three main examples. Now, how to make it and contextualize it to our language and to our context, we have included Croatian examples. And first one, second one, and these first two examples are coming from Croatia. The third one, I believe you all recognize, just like the last one, Braveheart. So for this reason, it was hard for us to decide on which example to choose. And Stela, my colleague, is also here today with us, and maybe she can add at the end her expression, because she was also having the main decision here in choosing the examples for the ones I'm showing today. Then on the second step, we were focusing on production. So we have decided to produce 3 new videos. As I said, 2 of them were contextualized, 2 additional from television student. We have used the products and the outlets that were already produced by television student, and we have added them at the end of the EDUbox. We have also provided some new animation and infographics. All together, we had to do field work, interviews with the main artists that are shown here, Zdenko Bašić, Iva Zagoda, and finally, and it can't be done without scripts and post-production, which is very important. And even the aesthetic of the video is of great importance based upon the reactions we have from the field while working with the students, and it has to be done on a high level. So it's not so easy to fulfill all the criteria, but also to meet the standards that were already done by VRT. So it was also one of the most challenging topics for us. One of the good things that we saw inside the EDUbox is the interactivity. I will come back to it at the very end, but at the moment I'm showing a quiz that has been produced. It's actually a self-assessment at the very beginning of the workshops that we had with high school students, where they are expected to answer several questions based upon they receive a specific type and how they self-evaluate themselves. And it's important because they realize that they are different in the class. Between 28 pupils, you have many different answers, many different voices, perspectives, and it is important for them to realize on that specific moment that they are different, that they have different views and attitudes on different topics inside the culture. Secondly, and also very important for us, was the great approach on the culture through cultural skills. For different cultural skills, we have contextualized in a different way in comparison to VRT. I'm just thinking about the presentation, not at the origin and the narrative. And we have focused on 4 different stages: perceiving, imagining, conceptualizing, and analyzing. And we have done this through the example of the artist. I've just mentioned him several minutes ago. So on the left side, you have a matrix, you have a framework that was in front of the students, and with all these 4 different approaches. And I will now just show you first minute of the video that I was mentioning, so that you have the impression of
Moje ime je Zdenko Bašić, transmedijski sam umjetnik. Kroz razne medije bavim se filmom, animacijom, pisanjem, ilustriranjem, crtanjem, lutkarenjem, kostimografijom, scenografijom i različitim medijima koji se bave pričanjem priča. Kod formiranja mog umjetničkog izražaja uvijek polazim od svoje nekakve osobne impresije, odnosno ono što mene inspirira, ono što meni daje nekakvu inspiraciju, i tu polazim od sebe kao onog klinca kojeg imam u sebi i što njega zanima kao tog klinca koji istražuje, koji tek polazi doživljavati recimo nekakve priču ili nekakav doživljaj izvana. Od malena sam oko sebe opažao...
Okay, so this was the first step, opažam, and perceiving. And that's how we were leading on the students through this video, a 3-minute video, where by the end, he will go through the 4 main skills based upon his example and his life experience. We think that this was very good and it was relatable because students reacted immediately and it was easier for them to understand the whole matrix of cultural skills, for cultural skills. And for me personally, maybe this was the added value that I didn't expect at the beginning while we were starting this process of contextualization. What is of great importance, and I'm sure that we will hear about it later on in the second presentation and the last one, is the importance of piloting and testing in high school, because it is easy to produce this type of content, but without the reaction from the ground, from the high school, from the students, you are not able to see if it all fits and if it's all easy to do, especially when they will be expected to do it without our help, moderation or curation. So for this reason, we have made a special test in the high school, one Zagreb high school. And here are some of their answers to what would be the most efficient way to raise the interest for culture in the society. You can see even by their answers that it is important for them personally to put it, in a real practical sense. So by providing further explanations on the meaning of the word culture, we saw at the beginning of the workshop that their understanding of the culture was different in comparison to what we expected. With good and professional education, more workshops needed at the level of high school, but also university level, to promote culture in the public space, to be more affordable price tickets for cultural events. This is something we didn't expect that we will have as an example, but it is important and we need to also pay special attention to this as well. I will not complicate with data and figures, just 3 important slides for me personally, because that's when we were doing the workshop, we saw the immediate reaction. The first question was, to what extent were you interested in any type of culture before the official start of the EDUbox workshop? And I'm pointing out to the last scale, number 10. So we see that the results even before are solid, but you will see the difference in comparison to what happened at the end, where we have the increase of the 9 and 10, which is very important, and it shows that we were able to motivate them and to change and to affect their interest in the culture in general. One additional value also, and Stela was responsible for this, are take turns. Tim didn't mention it as he didn't have enough time, but it is important to say that each EDUbox has its own additional materials, and those are special cards or activities for the class, and we have also tested them because this is a great place where you can contextualize through local examples and to think about the culture through science, where you have the example from Croatia, maybe you heard about Ikar's Materimac, and additional examples that are more generic one. But also, it is also important to think about the culture for sport and sports activity. And we have great example here, just when you see the dress that is recognizable in Croatia. When you mention Croatia, I mean, each one of you can maybe connect with red and white squares, and it is important because it is also part of the branding, and it's far more than just sport activity. Pictures as well, through 3 different categories, huge and great discussion about the role of pictures in video games and branding, and also fashion, which is something that they can relate to very easy, and this was really, really great as we had so many feedbacks in the workshops. But finally, the most mentioned one is the heritage, baština, where we see 3 different examples. The first one is the Homeland Memorial, just close to Zagreb. Then we have fields of salt and salt production, and one of the famous Croatian nomadic towns. So these are so easy to understand and expect. And just like we were expecting, we had the first immediate reaction on heritage and on sport, but it was maybe more complex for them to think about science as connection and connected with culture. As I'm going to the end of my presentation, before I sum up, the most important data that I'm showing now for the first time, and it will be included in our validation report that we are just launching. Has this workshop broadened your view on culture? And as you can see, we had 19 answers yes. So this is maybe one of the most important result for us, because we saw a change in comparison to what were their opinions at the beginning and how they reacted at the beginning. This was maybe one of the most important insights we had, and for this reason we will try to even go a step further and to take them also in new workshops and activities that were not originally planned by the project, because we see great opportunity here, and also for dissemination activities that are yet to come. Our pedagogical experience is definitely that we learned that there is a high level of student engagement by using EDUbox. Personally, I wasn't familiar with EDUbox before we started the project. It takes some time to be familiar with it, to learn about all its practicalities and the things you have to be very careful about. But I think that definitely we saw immediate response and a high level of student engagement. Relatable examples from real life are important. For that reason, I said that contextualization without huge intervention and with examples from the real life doesn't make any sense, because we can contextualize topics, terms, frameworks, ideas, but without examples from real life, they cannot relate to it. We also saw the great importance of testimonials, because they are helping students to understand culture in a different way. We had a very good example from one to tattoo artist. That was really something where we had good discussion. Even we needed more time than we planned, because it changed their way of understanding and thinking about tattooing as art. We also had new experience for applications. Team already has demonstrated this, and you will see after Annique's presentation, where you will see on the highest level of interactivity probably that can be achieved. We have also recognized potential for group work. They ask for group work, and EDUbox is making it possible, but through a new approach, more creative and far more efficient than the ones that we are expecting in our regular experience working with the students. And definitely something that can be improved are takeaway assignments, because EDUbox itself is really huge. It is a 2-hour activity, but if you pay attention and if you try to foster the communication and discussion between them, it can take up to 3 hours. So for that reason, our suggestion would be to take some activities home and work at home, even with your parents, and we will give our recommendations in that direction for sure. At the end, last words is great impact. So something we could not predict and plan, and for that reason, we will definitely use it. I will now show you what we are preparing and publishing next week. This is the new EDUbox on social networks. Pravo lice društvenih mreža means the real face of social networks. And we think that this will be even a step further in trying to find a new way how to be efficient and how to work in the best way we can in our high schools in Croatia. Thank you a lot for your attention. And if you have any questions and comments, I'm here to answer.
Thanks, Igor. There's a very interesting question, a hard question possibly for you to answer. I'd like to hand over to Barbara Stegeman from Slovenia. Barbara.
Hi, I'm from RTV Slovenia. We are very interested in trying this EDUbox for EU election. And yeah, we are in the midst of planning now, and we need confirmation from our CEO and so on. And I just wanted to ask you if you can estimate, how many hours of programmers work was it needed? Like, do you have any
rough estimates even?
Yes, yeah. Raw.
Yeah. Igor?
Well, it's hard to tell by figures, 165. It is approximately 3 months work per one EDUbox, but it's not to work every day 8 hours. It's teamwork. It's teamwork, and for that reason, it is depending. It has its own peaks. So where you work intensively in production and post-production, and it takes time. But I think that if you wait till the very end of the project, when we will present do-it-yourself toolkit, this is, the best way how you can enter in without providing too much efforts from the local base, because we are now practically doing this for you in advance. So it will be much easier for you when you have the final version and package in your hands. And even if you are thinking about contextualizing politics, if you have translation finished in 1 week time, and if you decide not to use all videos that we will produce and all other materials, interactive materials, practically you can have one version of EDUbox ready in 1 month time without any problem. But if you would like to have the comprehensive approach, where you will use most of our materials, and then it will take more time. So when I compare it to between the two versions, because one is PDF version without any additional material, you can produce it in a shorter amount of time. And if you have a total package, then it takes really much more.
Thanks, Igor.
Thank you.
That was helpful, Barbara. We'll have time to talk at the end, but I think we'd like to move on to the other example of localizing and the EDUbox. And for that, I'm delighted to introduce Annique Reinink from Schooltv in the Netherlands. We thought this was a particularly interesting example of localization because, of course, the original language remains the same, because it's both Dutch is spoken, both for the VRT version and also for the Dutch version. But I think, Annique, you have a different story to tell. You didn't just take it and reuse it. So over to you to explain how you localized and prepared the EDUbox for distribution in the Netherlands.
Yes, thank you for your introduction, Sally. So we did have a different approach. I'll just pull up my PowerPoint here. We did have a different approach because we decided, instead of translating it, because translation is, apart from some small differences, almost the same. We really enjoyed the interactive parts that were already in the original version. So we decided to do more with that. And we turned it into a chat form. So parts of it are gonna miss, but that's fine. We really enjoyed the chat form, and the topic we decided to do the first contextualized EDUbox about is AI, or artificial intelligence, because we figured it's a hot topic, but do we really know what it actually is? It's also part of the 21st century skills, so computational thinking. And the topic really lends itself well to explain some more about it, and it's really useful as well. So we did take some Dutch examples, just as Igor said. He also took some localized examples, and instead of Flemish journalists, we asked one of our own journalists from the public broadcaster to be our spokesperson for the chat. So you are chatting with him, and he's in videos, so he will chat with you and send you some videos. I'll put up a demo in a minute, but that's how one of the things we contextualized. And as Igor said, you can probably spend 2 hours or maybe 3 hours with the EDUbox, but because a lesson hour in the Netherlands is 50 minutes, we decided to quite shorten it. It was a challenge because we really wanted to keep the didactic line and the information, but at the same time we wanted to shorten it to make it easier for our teachers and students to actually use it in a way that's suitable for them. And from the start we took in accessibility into account. For example, for it to be used well by a screen reader or people with dyslexia. And I will just pull up a demo because that's way easier to tell you more about this. I'm just quickly gonna stop my screen share and pull up the demo. It's not live yet, so you're sort of having a preview here. And I do think when we have it online, it's going to be a really good addition to what we can provide as Schooltv for our Dutch students and teachers. So you will be welcomed by a welcome screen. And if you are a teacher, you will have a separate portal where the questions students are going to be asked. Their answers are going to be all together. And you can, for example, if you want, talk some more about what they answered to the questions and have a discussion about that. But we're going to start as if we are being students. So we're going to start. And Devron, our journalist who is very well known with our target audience, is just going to welcome you by sending you a chat message saying, hey, and he's going to send you a video. And he's telling you, hi, I'm a journalist for youth. And I'm going to tell you all about artificial intelligence because I did research about it and I'm going to tell you what I know about now. And he's going to tell you, this is what you're looking into in this application. And he's going to send you a question like, have you ever used YouTube, Siri, Google Translate, maybe? I'm using them quite often. So I'm going to say, yes, quite often. And by the percentages, you see what all the users have answered. So this is one of the examples, what's going to be in the teacher's portal, all combined together, and it can be used to talk about afterwards. And normally you will get message by message in this chat, but now I already loaded them for the sake of being easier to get through it. So there's a lot of mixed messages in this. So you get a video, you get a poll question, you get a short chat message and then a video, and then there's a quiz question. So what tools make use of AI? Is that a calculator, maybe Netflix, or maybe a search engine? So I'm going to say search engine and Netflix, both are the correct answers. He's going to tell you, well, the definition about AI is still a bit hard. So he's going to do some more about more contextualization about artificial intelligence. And we also added, as you may see, another person in the chat, which is me in this case, because Devron is really an expert on this topic. And I'm there to ask some simple questions. I might not fully understand it. So there's some more interaction between the two characters. And I'm there to just ask like, hey, did I get it right? Or just ask some silly questions and have some more interaction about this. And we're also giving them stuff to do for themselves. So a big thing in artificial intelligence is categorizing your data, your input. So we're just gonna have students do that. So what do we see in this picture? Is it a dog or is it a cookie? So this way you just learn by doing how artificial intelligence actually works. Oh, it's cute. Oh, well, and this might be one of the things artificial intelligence is having a bit of a struggle about, because is this a dog? Is it a cookie? Of course, I know, I'm going to say cookie. So just by doing, you're going to learn a lot more about how artificial intelligence actually works. So there's all kinds of different stuff in this to really have you engaging with the material. I'm just going to quickly skip to the third one. It will allow me to, because I really like to show you this tool. This was all developed by a colleague of mine, and I think we're really lucky to have somebody in-house who can build a chat like this and build applications like this. So this is one of the examples how you're going to learn how AI works, because AI first gets a lot of input, and in this example the AI was trained by recognizing children's drawings, and it can actually finish my drawing. And I'm just gonna start by drawing part of a pig, and I'm not very good at this, but as you can see, I'm not drawing anymore. So the AI is just going to finish my drawing of comprised of all kinds of drawings by pigs. So it's just going to finish a drawing, and that way you are very playfully just seeing how AI works, what it can do. We're also talking about the downsides of AI, and I'm just quickly going to show you our final version. Because this is another way where you are actually training your own AI machine, and I'm not sure it's going to work because I'm using my webcam. I can! Oh, that's awesome. So what it's asking you is to take pictures with your webcam, either a thumbs up or a thumbs down. So I'm going to train it by showing you this. Look, this is a thumbs up. Yeah, you see? Okay. So you're actually just training your AI. So you're teaching him, and you can see, like, what does it think? So it's pretty accurate already. But what happens when I change the background, for example? It's sort of gonna have a harder time already comparing the two. So that way you really just engage with the materials and learning by doing it. So I'm really proud of my colleague for developing this all. And we also tested it in classrooms, and we noticed a really high level of engagement, especially with these interactive elements, the quiz questions, the poll questions, and of course these interactive mini game elements. So we were really happy with that. And the teachers told us it was a really intuitive way, a good way to receive difficult information and bring it to the students and actually make sure they understand and keep engaged with learning about artificial intelligence. So I'm just sort of skipping through it, but I hope you sort of get a taste of what it's going to be. It's not online yet. We want to publish it when we also finished our second one about teamwork, which is coming up as well. And we made it in the same chat form. So there's going to be two of this. And the teamwork one, they're going to be together using the chat. And we embedded a game that was developed by the VRT. So I really enjoy this way of working with them, and really happy they chose to ask us to engage in the project as well. So I hope I covered everything I wanted to cover in this short time frame, and I'm not sure if anybody has any questions for me.
Thanks, Annique. Thank you very much. You can stop sharing now if that's okay. Thank you very much. Anyone got any questions? Very different approach to localization, because what you did is you essentially took the ideas and you localized them. So it's not a direct translation. It's not that kind of a localization. Anybody got any questions they want to ask Annique at this stage about how that worked? You will have, it will be possible for people to have a look at these things in the not too distant future. When will this be launched? When will it be
That's a
available?
really good question. I'm not entirely sure yet. So you sort of had a sneak preview already.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. If I'm to sort of, to channel Barbara, I'm thinking in terms of the cost that this has been, like roughly how many person hours have gone into taking the original idea, the original EDUbox in this case, and localizing it. Any idea?
Ooh. I was afraid this question was going to come.
Okay, okay.
No, we do have a team of my editor-in-chief, Eric.
Yeah.
Our head of innovation, Lisbeth.
Okay.
There's me. There's Tessa, who's doing a lot of testing, a lot of user interface. And there's Simon, and they did the build of this entire thing.
Okay, well, perhaps we'll come back to that towards the end as well, too, because I think for many of the people taking part this afternoon, of course, resources are limited. And so then you have to decide whether to just do a straight translation of the language of the material and make it available. That's the lowest level, if you like, or even having accompanying sheets. And I'd like to get some opinions from everybody around the table as well towards the end about if you're on a limited budget and you're localizing resources, where should the priorities be? Where should you prioritize? So we'll come back to that. But of course, we still have our fourth presentation this afternoon. And so I'm delighted to welcome Ella Airola, coming from KAVI in Finland. And she's going to talk about a different project, but where the emphasis is very definitely on localization and on getting the cultural sides right when you take materials and you start to apply them in your own settings. So Ella, over to you.
Thank you, Sally.
Super.
Yes, you can see my presentation and hear me. Great.
Thank you.
Hi everyone. Pleasure to be part of this seminar today and tell you more about our project and the different operational models and methodologies that we are using in our work. My name is Airola and I come from the Finnish National Audiovisual Institute. We are a governmental organization that has a legal obligation to promote media literacy. And today I'm especially talking about our new project called Inclusive and Creative Media Education. The project aims to develop operational models of innovative media literacy activities that can be shared and scaled up successfully in different media educational contexts from inclusive and creative perspectives. So something really similar that we just heard in the previous presentations too. In addition to the operational models, we will also gather together the contextualization process methodology. The project is co-funded by European Union's Creative Europe program, and it will last at the end of next year. Our organization, KAVI, is coordinating the project, and we have two great project partners. One is University of Florence from Italy, and the other one is an NGO, Institute of Communication Studies from North Macedonia. Our pan-European consortium is located in different parts of Europe, and that's a strength in our project when we look for commonalities and contextualities in media literacy. Here on this map, you can see that last spring, we started with specific themes in each country. So in Finland, in KAVI, we started with inclusive media literacy. Our colleagues in Italy first focus on creativity and critical media literacy, and colleagues in North Macedonia worked with young people's participation to society through media literacy. So these are the themes that we started, and first started to create new material and piloted it locally in our national context. And like I told you, in KAVI, we started with inclusive media literacy. And our aim last spring was to build a set of instructional principles that serve as a checklist and provide practical tools for professionals. So we didn't have any material, so we started to build it, and our multi-professional cooperation that crosses sectoral boundaries has been especially important through this project. So first we launched an online survey for professionals, then more deeply interviewed some of the professionals that have first answered to the survey. And with that data, we started to build the first version of the instructional principles for inclusive media literacy. And when we had the draft, we started piloting the principles. And I think this kind of in this kind of contextualization process, piloting is really important. Like we also heard from the previous presentation. We had a different kind of piloting. we asked professionals to evaluate the principles. We also had workshops with professionals where they worked with the principles, and we had different kind of case examples where they kind of like tried how the principles would work in real life. And then also in our own media education team, we tried how the principles would work when we design and deliver a media literacy basics video training for municipal workers. So many different kind of possibilities to try the instructional principles and modify them towards the final version. And finally, at the end, just before summer holidays, we published the final version of the principles. And just quickly show you how they look now. They include 10 principles. For example, find out the guidelines and plan activities accordingly, reflect on your own activities, attitudes, competencies, cooperate well where possible, take care of accessibility, and so on. These are just the headlines for the principles. We also published PDF material that opens the principles in like open text format, but also in a table format. They also give practical examples. So, and we also published a video guidelines for the principles. So a lot of different kind of materials to be as inclusive as possible, work in line with the principles. The materials, we first published them in Finnish, in our national language, and then translated them into English and also Swedish, so that our colleagues can use them too. And I think it is important to also, when you localize materials, also pay attention to the communication and dissemination of the materials. So on the right-hand corner, you can see some pictures from our social media campaign. But like I told you, it was just the 6 months of the project. Then we started to contextualize the materials. Each one of us had created some kind of material, and then we rotated them, the English versions of the materials. We got the Macedonia's material about young people's participation, and we gave our inclusive material to Italy. And right now we are working with the material that we got from our colleagues from Macedonia. They had created a trainer's guide. It includes 4 elements. So first, young people with their trainers, they are get training of some topic that is important in society or their local context. They are also getting to know different kind of public interest campaigns. And then the young people are planning and implementing a public interest campaign themselves and evaluating it. So this is the basic of the material that we got from North Macedonia. And right now we are thinking how to localize it in Finland. Our colleagues' trainer's guide was really comprehensive, 100 pages. It included detailed lesson plans for 16 classes. And it was targeted for high schools and piloted in high schools. So of course it was different than what we would need, because we will focus the material to youth work. So we are here in Finland summarizing the trainer's guide and also make it better work in Finland. Like Igor told that for example, the examples and pictures have to be localized. And also what I have learned from youth work, that it's better if it's not that wide model, and there is space for them to do their own addings to the material. So we try to make it work in 8 hours. We will also increase the participation of youth and pilot it in church youth work. The pilot will be next month, so we will see how our localization works in Finland, and then of course modify the material towards the final version. And next spring we will rotate our materials again, the English versions, and then we in Finland will get the material about creative and critical media literacy. And then of course we already have the knowledge that Italians and Macedonians have got from their pilots, and we will see how to localize it to Finland. In the beginning of this session, you asked in the poll that what do you think is the biggest challenge in localizing materials? And my answer would be that the biggest challenge is that it requires time a lot, and quite many challenges is linked to that challenge. I would say that localizing a material needs at least 6 months if you start from the scratch. It would be much easier to just translate materials, but of course the end result is can be better. Here I just share a table that we use in our project, where we put the level of contextualization. Will we adapt the material as such, or pilot a modified form, or just get inspiration of it? So it should be discussed beforehand with your partners, like how you will do it. And what I have also noticed, that the academic tone may vary when you work with, for example, with university or NGO or a governmental organization. So we probably in our organization don't start first thinking of the theoretical background, for example. We are more practical and that kind of things. But we will put the methodology together and publish it in autumn 2024. Everything that we published in our project will be found from our project website, and there are the first operational models already. So please visit there, or if you have any questions afterwards, please feel free to contact me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ella. it's really interesting to hear about the project. It's still at the early stages, I know, but the models are very interesting. Personally, I find that idea, the alternatives between adopting, adapting, or using inspiration is a very nice summary of how you can tackle localization. And I think the 3 different options are very important. Any questions anyone would like to put to Ella at the moment? Maybe just pop something in the chat if you have a specific question or a topic you would like to raise with Ella before we invite all of our speakers back. And I'm just looking for my chat. Okay, and thank you for the postings, Dovi, that's very helpful. Can I just ask Ella, are you using the same evaluation models in each of the 3 countries? So if you want to assess the success of the different modules, do you apply a single mechanism for evaluating, or do you localize that as well?
Yeah, that's a good question. At least for now, when we are doing the first contextualization, it looks like we will use localized version of the evaluation forms and materials, but I think it could be also useful to use the same one. So both are good, or there are. Yeah.
Researchers would prefer, of course, you use the same model because then you can make a comparative analysis, but even the very, fact of evaluating and assessing is also subject to the local context, of course, as well. Anything else for Ella before I invite Tim, Igor?
Yeah, thank you, Ella, also for this great presentation. I'm so much looking forward to the results of the project, as I know most of the participants, but I wasn't aware of the project before our workshop and today's session. What about the differences in educational systems? It's so interesting to have Italy, North Macedonia, and Finland together. So what are your experiences here? Do you have any problems, challenges while you are building these new models?
Well, absolutely, there are differences. Not all the models are focused on formal education, like you saw that, for example, North Macedonia had the pilot in their high school context, but in Finland, we will pilot it in youth work. So there are differences, but that we haven't seen as a challenge, at least not yet. And we will just take that in account when we localize the materials. For example, if we get from Italy a learning scenario that doesn't fit in our context that well, we will just modify it. But yes, there are differences.
And maybe one more additional, I'm sorry if I didn't pay attention to this, but do you maybe plan to have any type of exchange of experience between the participants? It would be interesting to see example from Finland commented by students in North Macedonia, and the same way, the other direction from Italy, perhaps. So they can see their examples, and I think that would be an added value for the project as well.
Yes, absolutely. And we are in close contact with our partners and we discuss a lot. And that's one key thing, that contextualization needs a lot of discussion. And in the best place, meeting face to face and, discussing the level of contextualization and different materials. So absolutely, we will do that.
Great.
Thank you, Igor.
Thanks both. Anything else specifically for Ella at the moment, or shall we open up the floor to discussion? So I'd like to invite Tim and Annique, of course, and also Igor to join in. And of course, all of you as well. We'd love to hear your opinion. I mean, it's such a challenge to localize and to make these, make these resources useful. I have a feeling we might have depressed the audience a lot today by talking about the costs and talking about the huge amount of effort that goes into it. And of course, the question is, would you not be better off just starting from scratch in your own country and just use these materials for inspiration, which was the term that was used by Ella. And I just wanted, just curious to know, particularly those of you now who have Igor and Annique who've put all this effort into localizing the EDUboxes. Frankly, is it worth it? Would you have been better starting from your own materials, because you both create materials, of course, in Croatia and the Netherlands? Like, what's the added value, or is there an added value at this stage in localizing? Annique or Igor?
Yeah, if I may.
Yep.
I'm really happy that we localized it, because it gave us a head start, especially on the information conveyed, the didactic line. We decided to keep that mostly the same, although we had to compromise it into 1 lesson hour instead of 2 or 3. But it really gave us a head start and really gave us some ideas how to build up a lesson. And some of the interactive mini games or applications that are in the VRT version, we also took into ours. There's a video animation we took into ours, and the interactive elements you saw me demonstrating are really based off of versions that VRT also had in their EDUbox. So yeah, it really gave us a head start and a lot of great ideas to be able to do this much faster than when we had to start off scratch.
So part inspiration, part adaptation, bit of both, probably.
Yeah, I would say adaptation and a little taste of our own.
Okay, Igor, what about you?
I mean, I would like to, if I had the opportunity to do it sooner and even before, because I think it's a great way how you can, introduce new topics to this specific audience, because this audience is very specific. Each one of you that has experience working in high schools with high schoolers, with their parents, teachers, knows what I'm talking about, because it's not easy to enter the classroom, to present an idea, to introduce topics. Culture is a very hard one, and for that reason we have chosen this one. But I think this is best combination I experienced up to now, and I'm teaching for 20 years, where you have a great combination of text, narrative, video animations, interactivity, and you can even bring it to the higher level by using these most upgraded applications by Qualtrics and others, other providers. Yes, it costs, it takes a lot of time, but maybe what we didn't recognize yet is the possibility of a tailor-made approach. So you have the full version, but you can choose what is doable in your context, cultural context. We now know for sure that it takes at least 2 hours to be efficient teaching about the culture. If you would like to do it as planned, it will take 3 hours. But we need to bring these options to teachers, and they are the ones that will choose at the very end. So it has to be highly adaptable. And that's the thing, we need to have even more clearer guidelines, maybe. So if you have 1 hour, just keep to this, motivate discussion, don't think so much about other topics, keep it short and simple, and try to make that approach where they will really become familiar with culture in general. I see a huge importance of this topic for the whole society, because we are working with high schoolers, most of them not interested in culture at all, and not thinking about how broader this concept is and feel. And I see this as the possibility for boosting their participation in our society. And that's maybe the most important thing for Croatian team.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm also just looking at people like Suzanne. I see you joining us from FWU in Munich. Just if you have comments about localization, or whether you do much of this yourselves in Germany, we'd love to hear from you as well too. So feel free to stick on your mic if you want to. There's a question. Oh, Suzanne, yeah.
Yeah. We've done localization as well. I mean, we mainly do videos, and of course, it's more difficult than to do a localization. Usually, you just do a translation of it.
Yeah.
And but we have done it quite often, and funnily enough, sometimes it was very difficult. We used to have a cooperation with France where we exchanged videos for biology mainly, and physics and chemistry. And when we got the films from France, for example, they didn't have any tone with it. They usually at that moment they only produced videos without any explanations. And then of course when we translated it, we had to have text with it as well. So we found there the kind of teaching was very, very difficult. And sometimes even videos couldn't just be transported from one country to the other, because the form of teaching is quite different. It's not just the topic and it's not the content. And that was something basic as biology, but the way of teaching sometimes is very difficult. And then you just can't transport it from one country to the other.
Thanks. Yeah, I think everybody could have recognized that indeed in terms of a challenge. Barbara, you have another question for Annique. Do you want to put that to her in terms of the branding?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, because you have your very strong and reputable brand name, so Schooltv, and how did you add it with EDUbox? How did you communicate it? You just said, yeah.
Yeah, that's something we have had, I think, quite extensive discussions about how we should combine those two. And I see Tim nod about this as well. So we decided, Tim, could you back me up in this? Because I missed one of the discussions. Maybe you should answer this question.
We know that, everyone has their own brand and their own look and feel. And that's also what we learned in our first at US, our brand EDUbox should always be up in front, but it's not always fair, or it doesn't always work with that other organization, and we came to a compromise that you could use your own colors and look and feel and your own brand, but EDUbox should be referenced at some point. So I think we concluded that at the first screen, or at the end of the EDUbox, at the end of your experience, there will be a link to the EDUbox and link to our also catalog. So that's
and the logo, yes.
And the logo. So it's I think we can negotiate how we can work together and what's possible. For us, actually, the most important thing is that that we can consult afterwards that the values of an EDUbox still exist, that it's has that the narrative is there, that there is the right mix of interaction and video, and it's a format in some case, but the look and feel, the colors, that's something that we can negotiate with, but at least there needs to be a reference in the link. That's I think
Thanks, Tim. I was going to ask Ella that, because in terms of, I mean, I was amused to see that the guide that you started with was 100 pages, and that you made a finished version which was 10 pages. Obviously because you wanted to shorten it and make it more accessible. But do you face any problems within the project now of the actual overall quality content and the fact that it's localized and sometimes changed quite dramatically? That's just a simple example, the guidebook that gets reduced. But how do you manage that within a project like that? Is that challenging?
Well, we haven't piloted yet the short version, so we don't know how it will work. But I would not say that. I think it wasn't difficult. It just, you go through the material and may take the best part of it. Of course, something will be left out, but what made it easier, because we are piloting it in youth work, and they doesn't need that structured materials. So we kind of like left it open. If in the Macedonia's material, it might say that like more structured, like now you discuss about these questions and then you will go to group and discuss that. But we just put it like now there is room for discussion.
Yep. Yeah. Because that's what the norm is in that setting.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So I suppose it begs the question that the right people to localize and contextualize are clearly those people from the country who are working directly with the target audience. I suppose that's the lesson we all learn. I just wonder, for somebody like you, Tim, I mean, is it hard to let go sometimes when you see things very differently done with your materials in another country, in another language?
Good question. For me personally, it's okay. I'm a quite open guy.
Okay.
It can be very learned. We can learn a lot of different adaptations. But I think there is a limit. I think there is a limit to the freedom that you give. Otherwise, it will be too far off of your own format. So it's an exercise in balance for me. But it's not difficult. It's a mindset, I think, that you need that from the beginning. But actually, that's the phase that we are in right now. We are also trying to create a kind of toolkit and some guidelines, and what is a balance, what is strict and what is less strict. And I think we need, in our coming months, we will have the discussion with the partners in EDUmake of what is the essence of the format EDUbox, and what are the pillars, and what is the main ingredient and what not. So I think I think I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Yeah, I think what we all see, Isabel, I see your question. I was thinking we should have a sort of open education resources at European level.
Yeah.
It's unfortunately, I'm old enough to have seen that discussion going around several times. And of course, it's yeah, you're right. It's the question of brands, but it's more, I think it's also more to do with the fact that people want their own localized resources, their own localized materials. And so making something that is applicable in other places is quite challenging. Isabel, if you want to switch on your mic and elaborate on that, please do. It's a great idea, but it's challenging, I think, unless anybody wants to come to reply to that. No takers, because I think it's fair to say in both these instances, we're both talking about European projects. So both in the case of Ella for ICME and also for EDUmake, these are partnerships that are almost made in that respect. They're not necessarily growing organically, and maybe that's a different kind of a relationship that hopefully we start to see, and then maybe we have better sharing. Isabel, do you have your mic on?
Yes.
Yeah, shoot.
I have my mic on. So what I was thinking when I wrote that, it was about our own reality. I'm Portuguese and I work for, I'm retired, but I'm still working for the School Libraries Network in Portugal. And we have that issue of localizing good resources for teaching literacies, media and information literacy, namely. And for me, the localization is the easiest part. Then comes the question of adapting, and sometimes it's not difficult to adapt, to make something and to adapt it to our reality and to give credits to the authors. Okay. But as we have seen today, for instance, videos are very important resources to motivate students today for discussions and to think about things. And videos are more difficult to adapt. We have had difficulties in getting the authorization to translate the subtitles. Even to do that, it is not simple. No. We've done that with, for instance, some Media Smarts videos from Canada. They let us do it, and they, as long as they put it in their YouTube channel,
that they're credited for it, yeah.
And that's fair. That's absolutely fair. And then we also can put them in our platforms. But videos are not. They don't need only to be translated. They sometimes the characters
need to be localized.
Need to be local.
Yeah.
And then we have the questions of funding and all that you have talked about it.
I think all we can do is kind of share ideas for ones that can be translated or can be localized. Sometimes this is on a one-by-one basis, and belonging to networks, of course, is a way to do that. So I'm going to bring the session to an end now, if I may. Thank you so much, Isabel, for coming in, joining us. And thanks, of course, to Tim and to Igor and to Annique and Ella. Thank you very much for the session this afternoon. I hope you all found it interesting.